G'day folks, welcome back to All Things Outdoors. Now, something that's been a real bugbear of mine for the last 10 years since I've lived in this place is the lack of storage space, the lack of shed space. So it's time to rectify that, and it's time to get rid of this crusty old shed.
Paddling jacks, driving on the tracks, and so much more. Come along with All Things Outdoors.
So the old shed here has served as the All Things Outdoors headquarters for the last, well, for the entire length that the channel's been in existence. And I've always had to work within the bounds of the space that I've got in here. As you can see, we've got the inoperable boat sitting in here at the moment, just keeping it out of the weather. I'll have to get back to this project at some point, but it's had to be like a multifunctional space. And you can see I just don't keep it in a very tidy state either. That doesn't really help. But we've also got the wife's gym over in the corner. So it's a very tight space as it is. And it's always been my dream ever since we've lived in this house to have a big sort of multifunctional shed that everyone can use. And we can park all of our projects and things in here and still have plenty of space. Our poor old retro caravan's had to sit outside all these years too, which doesn't really help considering it's over 50 years old. So what actually is the plan? Well, the plan is to build a shed that is 3 bays wide by 3 bays deep. So the rough dimensions are going to be about 9 meters wide by 15 meters deep. And we're going to have it a lot higher than what this one is now. So the eaves will be at about 3.6 meters, which means the apex of the gable will be about 5.7 meters, somewhere around that. It's got about a 25-degree pitch, so that I can fulfill another dream of mine where I have a mezzanine level in the back of the shed. We've got a multi-purpose room underneath that can be for the gym, for crafts, for people to stay over in a bed if they want to. And then above that, have a mezzanine second level where I can create the All Things Outdoors headquarters, if you will, my little personal space, my little man cave up there. It's just, I don't know why, it's just been a dream of mine for so long to have a shed with a mezzanine in it. I guess it kind of goes back to the childhood days where you wanted your own little cubby house. Well, that'll be my adult version of a cubby house up there with a mezzanine in the back. So what I've already started doing in preparation is there used to be a chook shed out the back here and the yard to enclose the chickens and a veggie patch in there. They had to start ripping all of that out because the only place that this shed can really go is where the existing shed is now. So it'll start sort of a bit forward of where the front of the shed is now, and it'll come all the way back to about 1 meter inside of that fence there, which gives us the 15 meters in depth. And then it'll come out to about where I'm standing here with the 9 meters in width. Actually, I've actually got it marked out. So there's the corner mark there. And as you can see, it's quite a bit bigger than the original shed in both width and depth, and height as well. Now, I've been going through the quoting process with a company called Easy Shed, which is actually quite local to here, and doing a lot of fine tuning in that before I pull the trigger and put a deposit down on a kit shed. Now, the good thing is that a lot of these shed companies have these 3D building designers that you can use to go and get a feel of what your shed might look like with the dimensions that you've provided. Plus, you can even put things like props in there to give you a sense of how big the space is going to be with things like, you know, from my perspective, I put a caravan in there and a car, and then you can see how much extra space you actually have in there with all that stuff already in. So you can see this prop here, the caravan that I've got in there, is roughly the same length as the caravan that I currently have. And you can see there's quite a bit of space in there behind it, given that this mezzanine is in here as well. And I mean, that mezzanine is probably not the dimensions that it's going to be at the end. It's going to be a bit deeper, but it'll give you a sense of what sort of height you've got to play with underneath and above, plus how much space you've actually got in the shed space itself. And then you can play around with things like doors and windows. So this is fairly close to what the plan is for my shed. So as I said, I'm very close to pulling the trigger on putting a deposit on the kit so that it goes into the building process. It takes about 6 to 8 weeks, I believe, once you put your deposit down for them to actually put the kit together and then transport it out. So that gives me up until just before Christmas for the delivery. And as we know, Christmas throws tradesmen into chaos and you can't really get anything done. So we're probably looking at around January or February for the erection of that shed. Which brings me to the next point about actually building the shed. So I don't know what it's like in other states, but in Victoria you can get an owner builder certificate for like a one-off project every few years, which then allows you to basically have a temporary building license to build a shed or do renovations or anything like that. So that's what I've been looking at. It also has its own pitfalls where if you have to get a subcontractor in to do things like lay a concrete slab, for instance, if the price of that work goes over a certain threshold, they've got to be licensed with the Victorian Building Authority, and then you've got to have things like insurances, and you've got to go into major build contracts, and you've got to have all these safe working plans, and your site basically becomes a work site, so you're subject to all the work safe laws, and it just becomes an absolute minefield of bureaucracy. But in saying that, though, you can severely reduce the costs of erection of the shed by doing it yourself, if you've got the know-how, of course. But then if you have to pay someone to put it up for you, it significantly increases the cost. So I'm currently going through that process at the moment of working out whether I'm going to go down the owner-builder path or stick with a builder doing it for me. The only problem is if I get someone to lay the slab for me, it goes over that threshold, so I have to go through that process of all the bureaucracy that's involved in an owner-builder certificate. But anyway, that's the plan. I'm very, very close to pulling the trigger on this, and it's a project that has been decades in the making. It's something that I've always wanted to do, have a big shed space where we can keep all of our toys and projects. It's a multi-function space. I mean, I would essentially love if we could, I'll say on a rainy day, pull the boat and the caravan out and then just have this big, massive floor space where you could play basketball or table tennis or do all these sort of indoor activities in a nice climate-controlled space. I mean, that's well down the path, but I'll have to do this thing in phases, I guess. So phase one will be actually building the thing. The kit actually does come with the mezzanine stuff, but not the floor. So that's a second phase where I build the floor, then we've got the space up there, and then eventually wall in the space under the mezzanine to create a multi-purpose room in there where we can put the gym equipment, we can have craft tables, we can put a spare bed in there, eventually we might even put a toilet or anything there, so it's like a bit of a granny flat where the in-laws can stay when they come down, and then the space above is the All Things Outdoors headquarters / man cave, and there'll be plenty of space for storage up there, because the way I've designed it is that there's plenty of headspace in that mezzanine level to let you stand up there, basically. And it's going to be quite deep as well. I think the dimensions that I've been quoted for is the mezzanine is 5 meters deep by the 9 meters in width. So that's a fairly hefty chunk of the shed space that is mezzanine, while still giving enough room to park the caravan and the boat and have a workshop bay there as well that's free anytime you want to pull a vehicle in or something like that, plus a whole heap of extra space in there too for tool storage. Probably the camping gear and all that other storage will be up in the mezzanine as well. And obviously eventually I'm going to have to build a set of stairs or something so you can access the mezzanine, but all of that stuff's in phases down the track. I'd even love to, one day put a wood fire in there, wood heater, sorry, and also maybe an evaporative cooler. So I don't want to get ahead of myself, because that's what I tend to do all the time, is be thinking 2-3 steps down the track and sort of get lost in the enormity of the project. But we've just got to, pump the brakes, which is something that's hard for me to do with my personality, and just sort of methodically step through this with all the information at hand. So that's the plan. So anywhere up to 6 months' time, we could have the new All Things Outdoors headquarters set up here at home, and creating some great content into the future with all the projects stored neatly inside our big shed. Thanks for watching, guys. Catch you on the next one.